She moves through the hall with the grace of a queen. Every step is calculated, every laugh a melody trained to sound spontaneous. Her dress, a scandal of silk and sparkle, is the armor she wears against the world. Eyes follow her, filled with admiration and a hint of envy, and she absorbs them like silent fuel. Inside, however, there is an orchestra of anxiety. A line of sweat runs invisibly down her spine, and her heart beats to a rhythm that has nothing to do with the music. Her hand, which gestures with such confidence, grips the champagne glass with a force that threatens to shatter it. She is the center of the universe, the peacock in all its glory, displaying the most stunning tail the world has ever seen. But what happens when the tail is the only thing holding her up? What is hidden beneath all this beauty and display? Sophia smiles for the camera, her eyes with a sparkle that seems to capture the light of the stars. The photo is on the cover of an architecture magazine, and she is the architect of the moment. Everyone knows her for her bold style, her impeccable presentations, and a confidence that borders on arrogance. But that morning, as the magazine slides off the coffee table, the sound of the paper hitting the wood is like a gunshot. In the mirror, she doesn't see the woman on the cover, but a pale, tired figure with dark circles under her eyes, who barely slept, haunted by the project that is about to fall apart. She promised too much, accepted an impossible deadline, and now, the facade she built is cracking. The internal tension, a constant buzzing in her ears, threatens to turn into a scream. The image of the peacock, majestic in its splendor, unfolds in her mind. The male of the species, with its extravagant tail, expends colossal energy to display what is, in reality, a show of strength and health to attract females and intimidate rivals. But what few know is that this display makes it incredibly vulnerable. Its tail, heavy and flashy, makes it difficult to escape from predators, turning its greatest asset into a mortal weight. It needs to keep up the show, the pose, the image of dominance, because without it, it is nothing. The tail, the facade, is everything. The psychology behind this human false confidence echoes the peacock's behavior. Social display, the search for status and approval, activates reward circuits in the brain. Sophia is trapped in her own image, unable to ask for help or admit she has failed. Because the persona she created cannot fail, the pressure becomes unbearable. A call from the client, which would once be an opportunity to shine, is now a threat. Sophia feels like the peacock that, at the slightest sign of danger, needs to fold its tail. The choice between maintaining the pose, risking disaster, or admitting vulnerability and facing shame is an internal confrontation that tears her soul. She knows that if she continues the pretense, the project will collapse. But the instinct to protect her image, to keep the tail open, is stronger than reason. In the end, we are all a bit like peacocks. The search for belonging, status, and approval is an evolutionary inheritance. But true strength is not in having the most beautiful tail, but in the courage to fold it, to admit weakness, to be, for a moment, just the creature we are, without feathers or sparkle. It is the recognition of our vulnerability that allows us to act, to free ourselves from the weight of perfection, and to find true security. The question that remains is, are you able to close your tail before the predator arrives? At a launch party, Marco is the center of attention. He tells hilarious anecdotes, gestures with eloquence, and toasts with everyone. He's the kind of man who walks into a room and, in minutes, seems to know everyone's life story. But at the end of the night, he isolates himself at the bar, the party lights reflecting in a deep emptiness in his eyes. The euphoria has faded. The mask, which was once a part of his face, now feels heavy. He feels completely invisible, even when surrounded by people. Loneliness is not the absence of people, but the absence of connection. And he, a master at creating superficial connections, is an expert at avoiding deep ones. The peacock, when not on display, is a discreet creature. The spectacle of the open tail lasts only a brief period, and outside of it, the peacock retreats, camouflages itself in the vegetation, and becomes just another element of the forest. The silence that follows the cry of the display is a brutal contrast. Glory is fleeting. Real life is one of caution and discretion. The peahen, the female peacock, does not have the exuberant tail and lives a less dramatic, but perhaps safer, existence. The parallelism here is striking. Marco, the social peacock, lives for the performance, for the moment when the tail is open and everyone sees him. He uses humor and extroversion as colorful feathers to attract and hold attention, but at his core, he is empty. Psychoanalysis points to narcissism as a defense mechanism, armor for a fragile self-esteem. The constant search for approval and the difficulty in dealing with loneliness reveal a dependence on external validation. The party, for Marco, is the stage. The bar, the secluded part of the forest where he hides, and the silence, the echo of his own insecurity. Marco sees an acquaintance approaching. His heart pounds. Should he open his tail again, tell another joke, maintain the facade, or can he, for the first time, be honest and say he is tired and lonely? The choice is a duel between the instinct to maintain the image and the exhaustion of living a lie. He feels that if he confesses his loneliness, the image he projected will crumble, and he will be just an ordinary man with ordinary fears. True connection is not built with feathers and dances, but with the courage to be who we are, without the need for a stage. Understanding that loneliness is an inevitable part of the human condition, and that true power lies in vulnerability, is the first step towards growth. After all, the beauty of the peacock is not only in its tail, but also in the simplicity of its existence when it folds it. Have you ever wondered if your silence is as interesting as your show? Carla, a young and ambitious CEO, dominates the boardroom. Her words are sharp, her decisions quick. She boasts about her multitasking ability and her Spartan routine, which includes waking up at 4 a.m. to meditate and run. Her team admires her, but also fears her. She is the personification of unwavering success. But in the parking lot, as she gets into her luxury car, her hands tremble so much she can barely hold the steering wheel. Her heart is in a runaway race, her breathing short and shallow. She feels like she's about to explode. Anxiety is a silent predator, and she fears it more than any competitor. The peacock, despite its majesty, is not a bird of flight. Its flight is short, clumsy, and serves only to move from one branch to another or to escape immediate danger. It is not made for the sky. Its strength is on the ground, in its ability to walk and display its tail. However, in a moment of panic, it attempts to fly, a desperate effort that often leads to a clumsy and dangerous landing. Carla's false confidence prevents her from admitting her overload. She is the peacock that insists on flying high when her nature ties her to the ground. The science of stress shows that constant pressure, the need to always be the best, chronically activates the fight-or-flight system, releasing excess cortisol and adrenaline. The panic attack in the car is the crash landing, the moment when biology screams for help, but the mind, controlled by the ego, refuses to listen. Carla's flight is an illusion of control, a flight from the reality that she is a human being with limits. The phone rings. It's her assistant. Carla has to go back to the office for an emergency meeting. The choice that confronts her is to go, maintaining the superhuman mask, or to admit that she is not well and allow herself to be weak. She feels that if she misses it, her credibility will be annihilated. The image of strength she built so painstakingly could collapse in a single instant. And like the peacock that needs to keep its tail to be worthy, she feels she needs to maintain the facade of invincibility to continue existing. It is important to accept that our strength is not in denying our limits, but in the humility of acknowledging them. The peacock that knows it cannot fly high is the one that survives on the ground. Flight is a metaphor for the incessant search to go beyond what we are, a search that, ironically, can bring us down. The question Carla must ask herself is, what is your real flight capacity? Julia has the perfect life on social media. Photos of exotic trips, dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, and the image of a fairy tale marriage. Her posts are full of captions about gratitude and true love. But at home, the cell phone screen is the only light in the dark room. The marriage is a desert of silence and resentment. Her husband, distant and oblivious, is in another room, watching television. Julia feels a coldness in her soul. The laughter from the travel photos is a distant echo, and the perfect life she sold to the world is a prison she built herself. The peacock's beauty is, to us, the pinnacle of its existence, but to the peahen, true beauty is a male's ability to build and protect a nest. The exuberant display of the tail is a sign, but it is not the totality. Often, the tail is a distraction from the lack of other more essential qualities, such as the ability to find food or protect the family. The peacock that only displays the beauty of its tail, but neglects the nest, is a peacock that in the long run is doomed to failure. The parallel with Julia's behavior is painful. The plumage, the perfect life on social media, is a mask for the emptiness of her nest, her marriage, and her real life. She lives in an era of spectacle, where image is more valued than substance. Human ethology and evolutionary psychology show that for millennia, what defined success was the ability to care, protect, and connect. Today, the metric of success is the number of likes and the perception of happiness that is projected. Julia is trapped in this paradox. The more she tries to appear happy, the unhappier she feels. In a moment of silent confrontation with her husband, she holds her phone, intending to post another fake photo of happiness. But she stops. The choice is brutal. Either she continues the pretense, posting another photo for the world and sinking into her own lie, or she turns off the phone and confronts the reality of her marriage. The instinct to maintain the plumage, not to show weakness, is almost irresistible. But the emptiness of the nest is unbearable. True happiness is not a spectacle for the world, but a careful and silent construction. True value is not in how many people applaud your life, but in the quality and depth of your relationships. The peacock that understands that the beauty of the tail is fleeting and that what really matters is the nest, is the one that prospers. Is your nest as well cared for as your plumage? Leonardo, a digital influencer with millions of followers, lives off the image of a self-made man, a successful businessman with a life of luxury. He flaunts expensive cars, designer watches, and a routine of glamorous trips. But in a hotel room in a distant city, he receives the news that his main investment has gone bankrupt. Panic hits him like a cold wave. What will happen now? The tail, the image of success, is all he has. The foundation, the true basis of his life, is disintegrating, and he doesn't know how to rebuild it. The peacock's tail, so beautiful and imposing, is surprisingly fragile. Each feather is a thread of chimeras, and it can be easily damaged, or even torn off by a predator or in a territorial fight. The display, which is the essence of its social existence, is based on something that can be lost in an instant. And when the tail is damaged, the peacock becomes marginalized, losing its ability to attract females and compete with other males. Leonardo feels like the peacock with a broken tail. His tail was his image of success and the perception of power. Without it, he's nobody. The psychology of social identity teaches us that we often confuse our identity with what we own, with our status, with our external success. When this is taken away, the person feels like an empty shell. The vulnerability he hid his whole life now manifests itself brutally. The instinct to hide is strong, to lie about the bankruptcy, to maintain the facade. In a moment of despair, he thinks about publishing a fake story to reassure his followers. But he looks at his reflection on his cell phone screen and doesn't recognize himself. The choice is clear. Either he continues the lie, maintaining the false tale and risking even greater public humiliation, or he has the courage to be honest, to admit failure, and to begin rebuilding his life in a more authentic way. True strength is not in the beauty of the tale, but in the integrity of the body underneath it. External beauty, wealth, status, all of this can be lost. But character, resilience, and the ability to rebuild yourself are the true essence. The final question is, are you investing in the beauty of your tale or the strength of your essence? The actor Daniel is known for his aura of mystery and arrogance. He's the star of a blockbuster, and his life seems like a movie script. But behind the scenes, he's haunted by a deep insecurity. A negative review of his performance in a crucial scene hits him like a dagger. He retreats to his dressing room, his breathing heavy, his throat tight. The insecurity, which he tries to hide with arrogance, now completely dominates him. He is afraid. Afraid of being exposed as a fraud, as an actor who deep down has no talent. The peacock, in a moment of confrontation, can be led to fight. And in the fight, the feathers of the tail can be damaged or lost. The peacock that hides its weakness behind the tail fears the confrontation that can reveal its true vulnerability. Arrogance is the plumage used to hide fear. When the fight is inevitable, the peacock must confront the risk of losing its identity. Daniel's confrontation with the critique is, in fact, a confrontation with his own shadow. The arrogance he displays is a mask for a deep fear of not being good enough. Jungian psychology teaches us that the shadow is the repressed part of ourselves, the fears and insecurities we refuse to confront. The review of his performance is the predator that forces him to fight or flee. The dressing room door opens and the director calls him for the next scene. It is an emotional scene which requires him to connect with his vulnerability. The choice is brutal. He can pretend that the review didn't affect him, put on the mask of arrogance and try to act. Or he can allow himself to feel the fear and insecurity and, perhaps, use that for the scene. The instinct to flee, to protect himself, is powerful. But art demands truth. True art, true connection, true strength do not come from perfection, but from imperfection. It is the courage to be vulnerable that makes us human and, consequently, stronger. The peacock that has the courage to lose some feathers in the fight is the peacock that, in the end, survives and becomes more authentic. The final question is, do you have the courage to confront your shadow?